Norbert's is having a sale on their November special, which is meat essentials that are on sale, which is like tape, chalk, anything you need for meats. And then they also have their Black Friday Cyber Monday sale with 10% off all models. Go to norberts.com for a 10% discount on anything with the code GymCastic. Norberts is also giving away a $50 Norberts gift card that can be used on anything in their online store, no minimum. Just follow Norberts Athletic on Instagram and comment on the giveaway post. Good luck.
Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. Welcome to GymCastic, the number one gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. Remember, today's show is PG-13 because I will not be holding back or bleeping anything because I have strong feelings that cannot be held back. So you have been warned and now doubly warned. Spencer, let's talk about the description and who ordered this show.
Yes, we have another commissioned podcast this week, which has been commissioned by one of our Club Gym Nerd members. Club Gym Nerd members help us pay the bills, and in return, they get thank you goodies from us. You can see the details at gymcastic.com for how you become a cool kid and join Club Gym Nerd. This particular episode was commissioned by Fluff Feels, or at That's Gymazing on Twitter, who asked us to talk about what else? Fluff. In particular, all the sugar mountain climbing, butterfly gazing, Romanian candle holding, coach changing, little girls dreaming, dancing, failing, falling, Russian diva-ing, sacrificial lambing, why can't Atler get her shit together, life sucks, and Shannon Miller's shadows were besties, were rivals, fluff that gives us all the feels. The more archetypal and cliched, the better. Yeah, I think we can do that. You're speaking our language with this. I think
for sure.
It's what we were born to do. Also, thank you to everyone who sent in suggestions in addition to Fluff Feels for commissioning the whole podcast. We got 11 billion suggestions, so we won't have time to get to all of them during one show because it would be like 17 hours long. I'm sure there are some of you who would listen to it, but still, we won't have time to get to all of them, so we'll just have to do this again at some point, obviously. Already calling for commissions for part two. For part two. We also already did a couple of the really good ones during the 1996 episode commission. So if you want to hear about Little Rosa Galieva or Just Shannon or Climbing the Sugar Mountain, be sure to check out those episodes. Those are linked in the show notes as we do with every episode, because show notes are like Russian toe point. Perfection. Particular, I recommend the show notes for this episode so that you can watch the fluff pieces as we talk about them or before we talk about them. So then you can have your own opinions, and then you can be like, oh my God, can't believe they didn't talk about that weird red silhouette in the background. And we'll be like, I'm sorry, there's just too much. So I'm sure that'll probably happen.
Before we get started, 2 quick reminders. This was recorded in 2017 before we found out that Khorkina was part of the Putin war machine. So keep that in mind. And also, live show in Portland, December 9th. It's happening in 2 weeks. Get your tickets now at gymcastic.com, in person or virtual. And there's a Black Friday sale that's really good going on in our store. Check it out, gymcastic.com. When we originally recorded this in July 2017, we had commissions available all the time. Then we had to stop because we had too many commissions. So now commissions are open again for a limited time. We're opening 4 commissions only. First come, first serve. So you can buy these for yourself. You can get a group together and buy them as a group. You can buy it as a gift for the holidays, birthday, an engagement gift for someone. It's engagement season. So limited supply, and it's all on gymcastic.com. So check it out. They're available again. Okay, let's talk about the best and mostly worst fluff pieces of all time.
I think that gymnastics could take a cue from like the overall NBC Olympics people, not the gymnastics subdivision, that like you're trying to create drama, which I don't object to at its core, but you can do that just with like music and like faux Shakespeare type language. Like that's all you need to get me like Olympics dramatic excited. Like you don't have to create like lies or these weird backstories. Like just montage it more than fluff piece it. Music, excitement, I'm there.
Exactly. If there's anything we have learned from the success of that car robbery franchise and all the Rocky movies, montages are all you need in life. Yes. Okay, so let's start with the 2000 Olympic all-around introduction.
Oh man, this is one of my favorite ones. Because we were so young then. We didn't know anything. This was before the start of the 2000 Olympic all-around. We were like, oh, the vault will probably be fine.
It'll probably be the right height.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites ever because there's so much Produnova in it, and all I need in my life is Produnova and her tiny, tiny, shortest skirt you've ever seen with the most gigantic fur jacket that any Russian has ever worn, which is also, it's tiny and simultaneously huge because that's what you wear in the summertime in Russia.
Right. Yes. It's like she's basically like the flag of Russia late 90s. In that, like, that should just have been when the Soviet Union broke up and it was Russia, like, that should have been the flag that they chose. Just Produnova in that jacket and that super short skirt with a huge slit up it too. I'm like, why did you even put anything on? It's awesome. But we start out with I like the way they do the introduction because we get like we get Russia, and then we do Romania, and then we do the U.S. to tell us how much better the U.S. is than the other two. Because basically, like, the whole premise of this is like the NBC Living Parents Championship, where they go through all of the teams and like see who has the most living parents, and then the U.S. wins, and that's why they're the best. It's super inappropriate. So we start with Russia. And just with the customary implied Russian cheating, where Trautwig like intones that you only have 3 people in the all-around final, but Russia has brought 4 to the arena because like that's a rule that you can't bring extra people to the arena. It was actually because Zamo was injured and Prod was injured and had to pull out of the all-around final, and that's how Zamo got in. The bigger story to me, as this like spy shot of the Russians arriving at the arena, is that Svetlana Khorkina was riding a bus, and I was like, they got her to ride a bus? Because in my mind, it's like, Khorkina don't ride no bus. Like, she needs to be on like a steed or something arriving at the arena. Like, no, there's no buses for this.
Carried by shirtless, oiled up men, of course.
Right, exactly. That's the only thing. We also talk a lot about people's father figures and how many father figures they have and whether they need a father figure and how sometimes their dad dies, so they have to find Leonid Arkayev and use gymnastics to replace the father, because as we know, people who have fathers don't do gymnastics because they're not trained to fill a void in their lives, because that's the only reason you would do gymnastics.
Everybody
obviously
knows that.
We also get just a random shot of soldiers picking up Zamo and just carrying her sideways through the red square.
Like you do.
You do that. That's normal. I'm like, is that a kidnapping? Because I'm like worried about her. They're just like, oh, we got her. Here's our battering ram, and we're just going to carry her. It's super weird. And then we go back to talking about the team final with the vague implication that we talk about Zamo's dad dying in Chernobyl and the backstory of that. And then there's the vague implication that she fell on beam because her dad died, because that's an appropriate implication. You just throw that out there. That's fine.
Right. That's
no
fine
problems
to make
there.
That. And that's why the soldiers came to pick her up and carry her away, so she can't talk about how the Chernobyl disaster killed thousands of people for no reason. And they sent all of those people in to fight the fires without any protection, and they all died afterwards. Right. That wouldn't be it. No, cover up.
No, that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's fine. Mm-hmm. That'd be, yeah. I mean, gotta get rid of her. Shut her up somehow.
Get her off the beam.
So we also have, this is when we get the shot of the Russians all taking off their silver medals from the team competition after they got silver and didn't win, which is unacceptable. So I remember at the time being like, really, and we were made to believe this as well, being like really offended that the Russians would take off their medals and how that was so disrespectful and inappropriate. I've changed now. Now I'm like, oh, that's fine. And that the silver was an insult, like Al implied it was. Yes. What are your feelings about the taking off of the medals? Because I remember at the time that was like such a big deal. Like, these horrible Russians took off their medals.
I love it. Like, if you did it on the stand, like if you have to go up on the stand and you have to go through the emotions and you have to just be there. That's right. But after the ceremony is over, I love that they took them off. I love that they showed their disgust at not winning. I love that they were like, we don't wear silver. Have you seen this team? No, not good enough for us. I love, and I love that it was so, like, that team was like so punk rock with with Khorkina just being herself no matter what and being unapologetically a champion. And with Khorkina with her shaved eyebrow line, so she looked like a warrior.
Produnova.
Yeah, I didn't know Khorkina. They just were...
Oh, if Khorkina had shaved her eyebrow, though, I mean, heavenly.
It would be awesome. The whole team had done it, could have been the only thing that would have been better. But they wouldn't have, because they were totally individuals. They were nothing alike. They were not like, you have to fit the mold and be a certain kind of American gymnast to make the team, or else we don't take you at all. You have to fit this personality mold and this gymnastics mold. None of that. They were so individualistic, so it would have been it wouldn't have made no sense if they all shaved the lines into their eyebrows. And that's what I love about this team. The only thing they did as a unified team was disgustedly take off their medals. Best thing ever.
I know. I love that team so much, too. But speaking of Prod, we have to talk about another Fluff piece involving her that we were sent that I don't think I had ever seen before, and I can't believe I hadn't seen it because it's magical. It's magical most of all because there's no talking. It's just like a minute of no doubts, I'm just a girl, as Produnova drives a convertible and flexes her muscles and goes to an amusement park of some kind. And it's amazing. And I just want to watch it all day long. It's so silly. And they get stopped by police at one point because they're like NBC and just like filming her as she's driving a convertible. And I'm sure being super unsafe. And the police are like, what's going on here? And then they kept this in because it's ridiculous of the NBC guy going like, I'm with NBC. We're shooting the best gymnast in the world right now. To the police officer, and I'm like, just arrest him, but also this is amazing because Produnova's just standing there like, what country am I even in right now? This is so weird.
It is the only Fluff piece that has ever been 100% verifiably true in every single way. It's perfect. It's all true. Everything about it is, you captured her perfectly.
Because there's no talking.
There's no talking.
That's how it's true. She just flexes her muscles and there's no talking. It's all true.
Yes.
We move on at this point to the legend that is the Romanian candle cups Fluff, which is just like has gone down in history. Because so what we see is after we're done with the Russians and how none of them have any fathers, we get a wide shot of everyone in the history of Diva, like anyone from Diva has ever met, all holding paper cups with candles in them as they parade up to a cathedral. Now, if you are anyone who watched this, especially if you were kind of younger and not aware of like the ridiculousness of NBC manipulation, you were like me and you were under the impression when you first saw this that this was a religious ceremony dedicated exclusively to the gymnastics team. Like this, Diva had invented a gymnastics religion where before the Olympics, the entire town gathered to like all go to the cathedral together and like bless Claudia Presicon and Andrea Raducan and just be like, you are our queens, go to the Olympics and have a great time. You were not aware that this was just a completely unrelated religious festival because Diva is neither a Dracula's castle, as we learned before, nor a cathedral. It's just a rando building. So, whatever.
I know. I was so disappointed to find out that was not actually the entire town being there just to have a religious ceremony for them. It's so disappointing.
I know. It's so much worse this way.
I know.
The reality is so much worse than what we were led to believe. Also, I do want to point out that I noticed that Octavian Bellu's candle cup is way, way nicer than all the team's candle cups. Like, it's multi-story and it has colors. Meanwhile, like, Andrea Raducan has like a Dixie cup, and I'm like, this is not going to stand. Like, this is where
all wrong.
This is how revolutions happen. When the one in charge has nice things, and all of the peasants, even though they're better, have crappy things. So that was not appropriate.
They did not learn from the Ceausescu revolution.
They really, really didn't. Also, I love the way they go through the Romanian team where they're just like, the star, Andrea Raducan, and also some other people, whatever. They're just like the least flattering possible things, like the sturdy Simona Amanar, and there's also Maria Olaru. Like, they're just like, nope.
And also, all of a sudden, they've put, like, Vaseline over the camera, like it's a 1930s, like, Hollywood stars thing. Like, what is that for? I was like, what happened to the camera? And then they're wearing the weirdest outfits you've ever seen and have the craziest makeup. Like, this is 2000, by the way. This isn't 1984, but all of a sudden, they have blue eyeshadow from the bottom of their eyes all the way to their eyebrows. And I was like, what is happening? Who put them in these crazy outfits, and why do they have eyeshadow from 1984 on?
Also, why is Maria Olaru have to sleep on the beam? She's just, like, draped over it, and I'm like, is this her bedroom? They're like, Maria Olaru, you have to sleep on the beam.
There's so much laying on the beam and then looking up, and we're just like, that doesn't happen. You get in trouble for doing that. That's when someone's like, are you broken? Get back up and finish your routine. There's no laying on the beam.
We are having a live show, and if you want to meet your people, other gym nerds, the community, you can meet them online or in person at a private event where you get to see us do the podcast in person. You can hear from the first American to make a U.S. Olympic team after graduating from college, a gymnast who also got in trouble on her college team a lot. Hear all those stories and meet some people. Then come see us in person or with a virtual ticket at our live show in Portland, Oregon, Monday, December 9th. It's coming up very soon, you guys, at 6:30 p.m. Pacific at the Show Bar at Revolution Hall. You have to buy your tickets ahead of time. And it's with a special badass Olympian, Mohini Bhardwaj, inventor of the Bhardwaj on bars. And if you can't make it in person, that's no problem, because you can watch with a virtual ticket. You can interact with your fellow guests. You can ask questions with a virtual ticket. As club members, you get a discount if you're a club member. If you have any questions, customer service at gymcastic.com. And tickets are on sale now at gymcastic.com. And if you can't be there that night, like at 6:30 to watch it live, you can always watch it later. So tickets on sale now. Tell all your friends, gymcastic.com.
So then we move on. From them, we move on and contrast these horrible people who need a gymnastics coach to be a father figure because their parents did not even have the common decency to remain living like a proper American family, like Elise Ray's, where we just see them like be like wholesome white bread, wholesome values family of her like nuclear perfect America. Like, where is Elise from? Is she from Michigan? I don't remember. Maryland. Like, they're perfect. Like, we're sitting on the front porch on 4th of July family. It's like comically like what you would imagine like a commercial for a vacuum cleaner from the 1950s would look like. And then they make Elise Ray stare at a butterfly for like 28 minutes, and she's like, why am I here? And they're like, just go with it.
Clearly, like they shift from the Romanians and the Russians to her and then say, Elise Ray's family is intact. I was like, what the? So clearly they have Troutwig hates anyone who does not come from a nuclear family, and just reference his comments about Simone Biles' grandparents, quote unquote, from the Rio Olympics when he was talking about her parents. And I just feel like this is how we know that Troutwig, Elise Ray's family might be intact, but clearly Troutwig's notion of human decency is not. And if NBC ever tries to make a female gymnast look at flowers and bugs again, or stand by a fucking piano, or fucking paint shit in the background, then they should just riot and smash the bugs and flowers into the camera violently and be like, we will not be treated like the 2000 team, never again. Also, if they ever do a fluff piece about Laurie Hernandez again, it should be realistic. It should be about her having dance parties in the living room and going to the Wawa. If the whole thing isn't filmed in the Wawa with her getting her favorite snack treats, then I will feel like it's all a lie.
They are really obsessed with like parental figures and family situations and all of that stuff. It's so weird. I mean, it's just like an odd obsession.
To say their family is intact, Who talks like that, first of all? Who even refers to, like, it just makes me think about how Altrowig clearly hates gymnastics, number one, and how he has, like, some obsession and thinks that only, family units are only, it's like another thing from the 50s. Like, you have to have two different sex parents, and even if they're, like, both alcoholics and beat the shit out of each other, that's the only thing that counts as a good family union, the only thing that's healthy. I'm just like, what? Like time, like, are you from a time machine and that's how you got here? Because you were totally out of touch with the world in general.
So, more things to frustrate you from the year 2000. That should just be the title of this podcast, like things that frustrate us from the year 2000. At trials that year, we got the fluff of Vanessa Atler's gym move and the Jamie Dantzscher versus Vanessa Atler / Beth Rybacki cries to piano music for 785 consecutive minutes fluff, where we learned that ungrateful Vanessa Atler moved gyms because she's terrible and she hates her coaches, and meanwhile good Jamie Dantzscher came back to them, and we're not stoking resentment and blame at all. We're just going to cry about what coaches deserve from their gymnasts.
Right. This is one of the ones that made me more mad than anything when Beth says, quote, to work, it's like talking about when Vanessa and Jamie left for a short amount of time. Jamie came back. She goes, to work that hard and then all of a sudden that they can just decide that they don't want to do it anymore and they are gone. Let's just dissect that for a moment. Let's just dissect that for a moment. Now, I know that this is just one quote, and she may have said many other things that were fine, but this is all we have to go on. Nobody decided they didn't want to do it anymore. They decided they didn't want to do it under you, the way you coached. And they decided to leave you. And you're supposed to be the adult. That means that you don't talk shit about the children who you are coaching. And this is a transaction. These are paying customers. And yes, you will grow a relationship, but if you can't be a professional enough to not talk shit about your gymnast when they leave, then you have failed to, one, be an adult and maintain professional distance and keep your own boundaries, which is also something you are supposed to be teaching people about healthy relationships when you're a coach. They can just decide. They can just decide to leave. So you'd prefer they were imprisoned with you as coaches, no matter how they felt? Like, that's not healthy. And then Steve says something isn't right, which was, I felt like, much better code for him being like, her agent and her mom are ruining her life when he was talking about Vanessa Atler. I feel like that was like the clandestine shade that he was giving, and I felt like that was a little better than saying, they can just leave? Like, yes, in fact, we're in the United States. They don't have to stay with you in order to support their entire family where they, everyone depends on your salary. Yes, they have choices. So Vanessa was clearly the adult in this interview where she said about her coaches, I love them. They're good people. That's the kind of thing you can say. When you love people, that's how you talk about them. You don't blame them for like, I put so much time into them and they just left me and ripped my heart out. And why couldn't the police stop them? There should be a law.
Yeah. And in your interview with Vanessa, she talks a lot about how, she wishes she had just talked it through with the Rybackis and ultimately stayed with them. And I'm thinking, like, once again, like, she probably should have, and that would have been a good move, and she understands that now. But also, like, the Rybackis did not help the situation with this fluff piece. Like, this is what I feel like this is a big thing of what turned it so into such like a drama that people were waiting like 17 years until Vanessa told the real story, is like this fluff piece, and being like, oh, we resent and blame her for hurting us. Rather, it's so weird.
Yes, you hurt us, not you did what you needed to do because our relationship wasn't working and you have to take care of yourself. That's perfectly fine. That's what we thought we should coach you as an adult person to become, someone that takes care of themselves. You injured us and we are upset with you. That's normal. Yeah. That's healthy.
More importantly than this, though, we do have to talk about the one shot at the beginning of this fluff piece where young Vanessa Atler and Jamie Dantzscher are dressed in like Wild Wild West outfits, that are too big for them in a saloon, I think holding like fake guns or something. And I don't know what this is. I don't know the background. I don't understand what's happening. I feel like it was a real missed opportunity when you talk to Vanessa. I don't want to tell you how to interview someone, but your only question should have been, what was the deal with that Jamie Dantzscher Wild Wild West picture where you're both wearing those cowboy hats in that fluff piece? Because I want to know the whole thing.
I have the exact same picture pretty much, except for one of us is dressed like a cowboy and one of us is dressed like the saloon slut, with me and my gymnastics best friend when we were about their same age.
So this is like a thing?
It's a thing.
Go,
yeah, okay. We went to like some water park and, you know... That was one of the things. Excellent. We did karaoke.
And I'm glad there's footage of it to be used in a fluff piece. That's also very important.
It is.
Speaking of weird moments in this fluff piece, there is a very bizarre ending.
Wait, I have to just say, so I don't get a hate mail. And by saloon slut, you know I mean sex worker. I do not. I was making a joke, and I didn't want to, you know, insult any sex workers.
Derogatory language.
I know. I would apologize. Now let's talk about the real derogatory language.
Oh, the real derogatory language was this. And now I don't blame the Rybackis or Jamie Dantzscher for this, because obviously this was like a producer, director telling them that they had to do this. But there is this weird like shot/photo shoot of them where they, in front of this like school photo backdrop, where they're like, clearly they were like, Jamie, could you look really worried? Beth, could you drape yourself around her like a shawl or a barnacle or something? And then Steve, sit kind of near them like the stepdad who's new and doesn't know where he fits in this relationship. It's the weirdest, most inappropriate shot of like a gymnast and their coaches. Like the implied like photo shoot that you go to, a loving photo shoot where you're like draped around your coaches, like that's a thing that's appropriate that you would do. It's so weird, and I can't help but look at it all the time. I think it's the one that Uncle Tim referred to as the helicopter parent photo shoot, because that's what it looks like.
And Beth's eye is like smashed against Jamie's head, like her eyes all like
she's like, I am never letting you go ever.
You're ours now. Don't hurt our feelings. We're adults. Oh, Lord. So let's discuss the Kerri Strug Shadow, Forever in the Shadow, You're Only a Shadow fluff from 96.
Oh, this is a real epic film experience. So this is what NBC aired. This is after the vault and the leg. So the legend of Kerri had started, and they've decided that they're going to air like a 15-minute documentary to like tell the legend of Kerri Strug and to make her story happen. And it's insane. What I didn't realize was that how like insanely sexist it is. But if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, you may know this fluff piece as the one with I'm Kerri, I have a wiener, because that is what it sounds like Bela is saying at one, or I'm Kerri, the one with a wiener, because Bela, what he's actually saying is, I'm Kerri, the one who's a winner, but in Bellish that translates to I'm Kerri, the one with a wiener. And if you're 5 years old like me, you think that's hilarious. So that has sort of gone down in Gymternet lore as that time Bela said I'm Kerri, the one with a wiener. But there's also a whole lot else going on about this, about how women are always jealous of each other and they can't work together because of jealousy, and they need men to straighten them out and teach them things. So we start in 1992. Where Kerri is in the shadow of Kim Zmeskal, but then Kim got a bronze medal at the Olympics, which means she's a horrible failure. So, as they tell us, the light is gone from Kim's career. The implication being Kerri doesn't have to be in her shadows anymore because Kim's a failure. But then Bela retires because he's so disappointed in Kim because she ruined his life. So Kerri has to move to Nuno's, where she's in Shannon Miller's huge shadow. But also, while we're talking about Nuno's, I want to talk about how they made Kerri dress like Shannon and how weird that was. Because that was the era where they had the hair poof, and they had the exact same hair and the exact same Leos, and they tried to make them look the same, and it's so creepy. And I can't even deal with it. So maybe that's why it seemed like Kerri was in Shannon's shadow. But they really try to make that happen. Like, Kerri's jealousy of Shannon as a real thing. Like, they show a shot of this woman handing out like boxes of Adidas swag to the team, and she hands one to Shannon as Kerri looks on like emotionally and jealously, when clearly like the woman has a whole handful of them. Like, she's handing them to the whole national team or whatever, and if you had let the shot go 2 seconds longer, Kerri was going to get one too, but we cut it off right before, so it was like Shannon gets the Adidas box and Kerri doesn't. And everything's broken. Without Bela, how could she go on?
It's like every terrible reality show got the producers for those shows, their training camp is they just watch, like, here's something that's totally untrue, but here's how you cut it to make you look like it actually happened, when in fact it's a complete lie. Now you know how to make a reality show. Yeah.
So the whole thing is that she doesn't have Bela anymore, so her life is ruined because Bela is the king and he's great at everything except rowing, which we need to talk about, because they show him on the lake that he quote unquote built with his own 2 hands, Paul Bunyan, and he's in this broke ass boat and clearly has never rowed a day in his life, because he's just like going in a circle and flopping around, and it's super silly. And why would you even use that? And that boat looks super jank. Like, what even? I would believe that he built that boat with his own 2 hands, because it's just like a cardboard box. Like, my girl ain't so seaworthy there, Bela. You need to fix that.
And then while they're showing Bela fail at rowing, Troutwig, or was it Tesh? I can't remember at this point, says, and I quote, they're talking about Kerri now, "Where was the only man who could make her dreams come true?" Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you forever! Fuck you fucking sexist Disney fairy tale movie watching propagandist fuckhead burning a fire made of the tears of the patriarchy because Kerri Strug's a woman! She's gonna make her own fucking dreams come true! Fuck you!
So how do you feel about that quote?
So good!
Good to know.
And then they go to her parents and they talk about, quote, reclaiming their baby girl. She's 16 fucking years old.
Reclaiming their baby girl. Oh
Everyone
my God,
stop
so
infantilizing her. I know she's still a minor and parental intervention is good. I'm glad her parents got involved, but it's not them that says reclaim their baby girl. It's NBC that says reclaim their baby girl. I'm like, stop infantilizing, like, these women who are in a first world country who have agency and are choosing to do the sport. Come on.
So, obviously, Kerri's life is terrible because she doesn't have Bela, and she leaves Nuno's. And then that's when we get a lot of, like, random symbolic shots of the desert, and it's unclear why. I think it's just, like, I guess, her internal desolation. Because
she's from Arizona, right?
Yeah. But, like, also still.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't count. But, like, we didn't have to show, like, and now Kerri didn't know what she was going to do. Cactus. Like, they're emphasizing her desolation because now she has to go work with Arthur Copian.
And can I just talk about the desert? I know she's from the desert, but can we stop desert shaming the desert? Because this is a living, breathing, necessary environment to the world and to our planet. And this is how we end up with nuclear tests all over Nevada. We need to protect the deserts and treat them just like a tree-filled forest. And this is very upsetting to me.
No, deserts are the worst, and I may just feel that right now because it's 178 degrees and all heat can go die, and I'm melting as we record this podcast, but deserts can suck it. They're the worst.
Agree to disagree.
So then Kerri goes to Arthur Copian, and we get the injury porn of that famous bars fall at that, like, hotel ballroom competition where she peels off and then lands on the ground and is screaming "help me" as everyone gathers around her. And I just sort of assume Arthur Copian is like, you're fine, go to the Olympics, as long as you can still go to the Olympics, right?
That's what his gold chain was saying, at least.
Yeah.
That was all I could see was the gold chain.
Yeah. So I have a question about this, though, because then they say, and this, I'm assuming this is just NBCing, because then they say, like, the doctors told her that she would never walk again. And I'm like, wasn't it a muscle injury?
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying it wasn't serious. It was like a severe muscle injury in her back, and that's horrible when you're trying to do gymnastics. But, like, really? The doctor said she would never walk again because of a muscle strain? Really, NBC?
Right. That's the thing. As far as we know, she didn't fracture anything. She didn't tear her spinal cord apart. Right. She didn't even sprain any ligaments that hold her spine together. Like, it was a muscle tear. And yeah, it might have been huge, but that's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If they really did tell her that, then they're the worst, dumbest doctors ever. Like, just take all the doctors out of Arizona because they're no good. Like, get rid of them.
I really feel like sports fluff pieces as a group need to cool it on the doctors told her she would never walk again, because if you went by just those, you would think that doctors are telling people that they never walk again, and then they walk again like 7 times a minute, because like everyone's like, the doctors told her she would never do the sport again, and they do. I'm like, pull it together, doctors, or pull it together, fluff pieces. Like, you are wrong all the time. Stop it. Stop telling people they're never going to walk again, because they all do. So then we get another little gem of a quote, which is that Bela is the piece of her life she was missing. As if, we didn't know that Bela is the only important thing in any gymnast's life, and they're just nothing. And they're little toy soldiers that he organizes and puts around. We also get another killer quote when we moved on to the Tom Forster, Kerri Strug era. And then all we get from Tom Forster is, one thing we knew when Kerri came is that she has certainly displayed the ability to leave. Oh, the shade. So much shade. So then Bela comes out of retirement, Dominique Moceanu, blah, blah, blah. And then we get Kerri would have to crawl back to the shadows. Like, yikes, people. Like, crawl back to the shadows of Dominique Moceanu. And, of course, definite jealousy because women, and that's what happens with women, right, Jessica?
Right, exactly. If this is a football team, that's not what's talking about. The whole team is together, they work as a team, team to team to team, team, team. But if it's women in an individual sport, of course, crawling, shadows, and jealousy. I can't remember who it was that told us this. Either it was in Moceanu's book or it was Betty Aquino told us on the show, or maybe it was Rhonda Fain when she was on the show, that Kerri Strug, and so they mentioned this in the piece that her parents say, and she talks about, when she went back to Bela, like, we talked to him, there's certain things, I was older, so I couldn't do as many repetitions, stuff like that. And that's what I think maybe Betty Aquino told us too, is that Kerri Strug wasn't treated like the other gymnasts. She wasn't treated like Moceanu because her parents laid down the law with the Karolyis, and that actually worked. They actually respected the limits that were set by the parents when someone actually communicated with them and gave them limits and said, you will not do this, or we will move her, she will leave here. And they were like, okay. And they didn't treat her like they did other gymnasts. And I think that's very, very telling about the Karolyis and also about people taking control of their own careers.
Mm-hmm. So we learn that Kerri, now that she hurt her foot on a vault, she's not in anyone's shadow anymore. So it was all worth it because she's not jealous of anyone because of foot. Important.
So I feel like after this, like, one of the most of so many sexist pieces put together by NBC, that we need like a Bechdel test for fluff pieces. So the Bechdel test is its movie criteria. If it's not a sexist movie, there's only 3 criteria. It's 1, it has to have at least 2 women in it who 2 talk to each other about 3 something other than a man. So I feel like we need like the GymCastic fluff test, which would be something like you talk about a gymnast without talking about her age or her relationship to her parents or coaches.
Yeah. Or without giving credit to the coach.
For everything.
For everything.
Giving credit to every single person she's ever come in contact with instead of her for being an amazing person and getting it done. herself. Like, and I know, like, that's the thing. I know that the relationships coach is really important, and you're even closer in gymnastics because this person literally catches you and saves your life when they're spotting you, and you're together like 8 hours a day. I know all that stuff, but still, like, it's still the person who's getting it done, not their coach isn't going out there and doing their routines. So if you guys have ideas for a GymCastic fluff piece test, like, not sexist, not racist, we need some racism rules in there. Like, you don't wait until we get you guys. We're gonna keep adding to this as we go, but send us your ideas, gymcastics@gmail.com, because if you thought the stuff from 96 about Mohini was bad, wait until we get further. But now let's talk about the best fluff piece that's ever been made, one of both of our all-time favorites.
Yeah, we need to get into A Diva is Magical, because A Diva is Magical. If you're not familiar, this is the 2004 fluff about Svetlana Khorkina. So the whole thing with her and A Diva was that NBC was so obsessed with calling her a diva. It was diva, 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 Khorkina diva. In 2000, they made some reference to, like, they talked to her and they were like, so we talk about you and we call you a diva. You're a diva, 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 diva. And she didn't know what the word diva meant. And they were like, boo. So by 2004, she has learned the word diva. And that's basically like the whole premise of this fluff piece about her, which starts with like random shots of desolation and chipped paint just to sort of set the scene that, like, Russia is terrible and America is great. And then Khorkina's voiceover, where she just goes like, yeah, Russia sucks now, but I'm here, so it can't be that bad, right? And we're all like, fair point. And so she's just sort of like in a Leo, strutting down a dimly lit hallway. And if they had done that with anyone else, I would be like, this ridiculous fluff piece. But with Khorkina, I'm like, that probably happens. Yep. And she's just like strutting along the hallway being like, that's mine. I'm better than that chair. I'm better than that person. I got that. I own that. This is good. Like, I totally believe it, and it's perfect. So they make her talk about divas, and what she tells us is A Diva is Magical, which was brilliant at the time, but birthed 1,000 narratives about trying to make diva happen for other Russians, where it's just sort of like cramming them into this Khorkina narrative that no one else really fits. And then there's another quote. And do you remember Al making such a big deal about it when she says, I want to win as much as I want to mother my own child? Like, he talks about it endlessly and is like so scandalized at like this is some ridiculous, insane priority. But I'm like, yeah, duh. Like, yeah, she's worked for this a long time. She wants to win the Olympics. Like, how is that a weird thing to even to say? I don't think that's weird.
That's the thing. I feel like if it was a baseball player that said that, he would be like, this man understands what you need, the burning desire in your heart that's needed to pitch a blah, blah, blah. You know? Like, that's what he would say. But because it's a woman and it's a Russian and she likes being called a diva because she is an actual badass and fits that definition perfectly, because they also don't mention in this whole fucking thing that she'd won a bazillion times and is like the champion of fucking everything in a row. Like, I was like, well, where the fuck is that? Like, hello, can you please mention that she deserves, like, she has earned the feelings she has about herself from her own fucking merit, not from her fucking coach or fucking parents or you, dickwad. Like, she has the motherfucking credentials. Fuck.
Oh, I know. It's like, if anyone, like, she's just, what I love about this is that she's just so Khorkina. Like, she's aggressively Khorkina. Like, she's almost like an SNL version of Khorkina. In this, like, if you were doing SNL Khorkina, which, you know, a big gap on the cast right now, that they don't have anyone doing Svetlana Khorkina. They really need to get someone for next season. It's really, you know, timely and important. But if you had someone doing Khorkina, you would just do this. Like, she got it. She got herself down already, and it's perfect, and I love her so much when she's just like, that part where she's like, I've been great for a long time, wink at the camera. It's just like so her, and she knows how great she is, and she gets it, and she knows what she's doing. Like, she knows that she's being like kind of like overly confident. She's just like, yeah, this is me. These are the things that I say. I've been great for a long time. I'm going to go to the Olympics and get what belongs to me. And we're just like, yes, she's the best.
Okay, and this is one of the things that I remember from this Fluff piece. It's one of those things that stood out to me forever because you never see this happen in practice. Like, it's so rare. Like, maybe in men's high bars, sometimes I see people do this, but so there's a part where she's practicing bars with her beloved coach who believed in her, even though she's a perfectly normal, average-sized person at like 5'6" or 5'7". And he just taught her how to work bars differently, which made her one of the greatest, most decorated gymnast ever of all time. Thank you very much, because being different is perfectly fine and individuality should be embraced. So he's standing there watching her do bars and she does like a Stalter Tkachev and then she just lands on her feet. She does it. She misses it. She misses her Tkachev and just lands on her feet. She does not fall from her face from 12, 15 feet in the air. She's just like, bloop. When I stand, I don't fall flat in my face. I just land because I'm Khorkina and that's what I do. And I can't be bothered with splatting. That's beneath me and I'm a diva. Thank you very much. I will just stand from this height. I just love her so much. Also, I know that like at the beginning of this, they show like, you know, it's desolate and it's always looks like it's winter time and it's like, you know, there's metal fences and the outside of the building looks like crap, and I'm like, that's how it looks for people with harsh winters. The outside of everything looks like crap because you have to repaint all that crap and everything, and places with harsh winters don't look at all sparkly like they do like in California where nothing happens, so everything, the outside of buildings, you barely need to ever paint them because they're like last forever. Like cars always look good here because nothing happens to them. Like maybe it rains twice a year. So anyway, don't get me started on that. So Round Lake to me is gorgeous. I love seeing the inside of it. It's totally gorgeous. When she does that slow, like, sultry walk down the hall, like, that's right. I have way more all-around medals and gold medals than any American gymnast. Suck it, NBC. Here I come. Sultry walk. Like, it's a wooden hallway. There's wood floors. There's like a colorful carpet down the hallway. There's huge windows. There's curtains. There's sunshine. There's like, it's actually like, it just to me looks like it was this grand place that was built to honor the athletes. And like some of that is still there. And it's just, I don't know. I just love seeing the inside of Round Lake. I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with the carpets. More on the carpets later.
Yeah, it's the weird thing about Round Lake because, like, my impression of it is, like, that shot of that rusty gate that they use, like, in every single Fluff piece about Russia. Like, that same, like, horrible gate closing and, like, shots of babies crying and chipped paint. But I'm like, NBC, that gate could be anywhere. Like,
right.
It doesn't even have to be in the same city. This could be anywhere. So, like, my impression of Round Lake is that it, like, takes place in a cholera epidemic during the 1830s, because that's sort of what we've gotten, but that may not be true at all.
Right, and if they filmed it in August or July, it's probably super green, and the trees are huge, and everything's up and blooming, and, you know, it's still light at 10 o'clock at night, and, you know, it's just, it always just, they make it look like it's, everyone is scrounging for their food rations still, and it's 1940.
Yes, so I think at this point, we need to talk about the most horrifying, like actually blood-curdling Fluff piece that was ever made. This was it aired during a 1994 friendly meet between Romania and the US, and they end up using a lot of this in 1996. And what I noticed watching a lot of these Fluff pieces that you guys sent in from 1994 and 1995, they just recycled this stuff for the 1996 Fluff pieces that we know so well. I'm like, lazy Olympics. This is all from like 94 and 95. So this insane Romania Fluff, it begins so nicely. Like, all the Romanian gymnasts are in a meadow and they're laughing and playing cards and climbing trees and picking berries, and they're all happy sisters, and we see them like skipping in a circle like no one told them to, and they definitely just did spontaneously, and it wasn't for a shot. And it's sort of like it's the peak of like NBC Fluff Piece profound nonsense quotes with the sweeping music where they have Beth Rybacki saying things like, "From the mountains springs a life force, like an opus rich in variation and color," which means nothing but also is amazing. And so it doesn't matter that it means nothing because it's so cool sounding. So everything's great, and we learn more about Gina Gogian's eyes because they're obsessed with them, and it's the face of a nation, and you look into her eyes and you understand the truth of human existence or something. I don't know, but apparently they're really important. So everything is great, and then it takes a turn, and we get tanks rolling in, and shots of riots, and shooting, and in the streets and punching random ladies, and the revolution, and all the shots of the graves and the AIDS orphans that we talked about in the 1996 Fluff Piece, and it turns very dark very quickly.
What killed me about this part is that Beth Rybacki again says, "And then the scars of war," and then shows a baby. And I'm just like, whoop, wait a minute. That's not because the people rose up against a dictator and took him down. That's not why that baby is there. This is well established that under Ceausescu, abortion and contraception were both illegal. Not only that, I mean, there's so much on this. There's a whole episode of Freakonomics podcast, or you can go to the website, that talks all about this. And the orphans weren't from the dead teenage revolutionaries who took back the country from Ceausescu. They were from Ceausescu forcing women to have children they didn't want and could not take care of. That is why all these kids ended up in orphanages. It's from Ceausescu. It is not from the great Romanians who took the country back from him. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is so full of lies. It's making me so fucking mad.
Oh, Jessica, you and your truth. You and your accuracy. We can't be bothered with these things. There is one point where they just show a shot of like a child. Just they found a random child, and the voiceover is, "In vacant eyes, a hollow reflection of a nation's soul ripped from its being." And that, I imagine that kid being like, "Wait, what? It's just a child." And they're like, "Look at these vacant eyes." And I'm like, "They're just eyes. Like that child looks fine."
No, that's Gina Gogian you're thinking of, not this sweet kid who's clearly looking at you and looks happy.
I know. It's like the child. Oh my God. They're obsessed with Romanian people's eyes, because we have the child's vacant eyes and we have Gina Gogian's eyes, and I don't know what it is. And I was thinking about, do you remember that National Geographic cover that was really famous at one point with like
the Afghan girl?
The Afghan girl,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was good that you knew it was Afghan because I couldn't remember like which war it was about. The Afghan girl and those like her bright eyes, and that was like a thing. And I feel like NBC was really trying to make like war-torn eyes happen, and they wanted their own like that National Geographic cover moment. So they were like, "Look at Gina Gogian's eyes. Look at this child's eyes. Eyes. Isn't this going to be famous? Isn't this going to be a thing? No? Oh, okay." But then we get the creepiest part of this whole thing, which is just a literal extended shot of a dead body, just like lying face down in the middle of the street. And I'm like, okay, like I know we're talking about a revolution. And first of all, this is a fluff piece. You don't need to go into like, you're never going to do a serious subject like this justice. So like, don't even bother. But like, really, did we need the like extended shot of a dead body as we talk about how the gymnasts are going to save the country from like non-specific? We don't even know, like the thing about NBC is it's unclear which side they're on in this. Like, we don't know if they're pro the revolution or anti the revolution. Like, unclear. But whatever happened, everything's terrible now, but the gymnasts are going to save them. And we see all of them like staring wistfully out of windows and like thinking about how they're going to save a country and win at the Olympics. And then we see Andrea Kokovan dressed in, I think, like the Emerald City if it got food poisoning. It's super weird, but don't worry about it. It's just like if you watch that Fluff piece, just like note Andrea Kokovan's outfit and note that I saw it too.
And this is the thing that killed me about this part is at the beginning, they were talking about how these kids are no longer puppets of the nation. They're not like a tool of the government. But suddenly, then at the end of the Fluff piece, NBC decides, oh, wait, just kidding. Yes, they are. They're the only hope for the country, so they better get their shit together. Like, no pressure, kids, but it's all on you. Because we know all the teenagers died fighting, and all the other kids are in Romanian orphanages, so they're only going to, turn to a life of crime or die from AIDS. So it's all on you. By the way, we just decided. I was just like, and then all of a sudden, it's not that they're, before it was like the government, took them from their homes to be used as a tool, and this is the only way they support their parents, and it's for, the pride of their country and blah, 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 commie narrative. And then all of a sudden at the end of this, they say that she left home at age 7 to pursue her dreams. I was like, wait, get your commie narrative straight. Like, is it to be a tool? Because when she was 7, Ceausescu was still involved, and now she's like 16, and you're saying that like this is all her choice, and it wasn't because of him. Like, we're paying attention. Oh, so many problems.
They stopped being communist puppets, and they became capitalist marionettes, Jessica. Get it right.
That's how it worked. Oh, yeah. Of course.
Come on.
I understand now.
Oh. So, the thing about the peak of Fluff, which I would say is like 93, 94, 95, 96, this was like the golden years of insane Fluff, which was also like when everyone became obsessed with Dominique Moceanu. So like, a solid 60% of all Fluff pieces that were ever made were about Dominique Moceanu, and they're so creepy, like especially creepy, because like especially in the lead up, like when she won nationals in 1995, all of the stuff about it is like so voyeuristically obsessed with how small she is or how young she is, and trying to make her into like a younger and younger girl until she's like 6 years old. So there's the big one about her in 1995 is the one I want to talk about, which first of all, this is the origin of all of those shots, like the inner tube and the seesaw and the things they used over and over again. And when we were talking about the 1996 Olympics, we were criticizing them for slamming her on the seesaw and being like, do a seesaw like a 14-year-old does. This is age appropriate. But then I was thinking like, oh no, they shot this when that actually would have been age appropriate, and they just keep using it because who knows when this actually was. But
yeah, and one of our listeners wrote in, too, and said that they told her to go to the park and play with her sister, but then for 100 years after that, and exactly, she might have been 12 at the time, but then 100 years after that, they only filmed her. There's none of her sister has never been seen on the other end of the, as far as we know, it was a 50-year-old man with a camera on the other end of the seesaw the whole time.
Which they would have had to do to get that shot. Right. To get that head-on shot, like, where was this camera? Yeah, they're basically like, you're 5. But the way they talk about her is so like, the first line is, she's a gift, really. I'm like, oh, or a person, whichever. Oh no, she's just a gift to you. And they say things like, this little gift will give us what Nadia gave us. And I'm like, ew, like it's so gross. And you wonder why like these pedophiles gravitate toward gymnastics. Well, maybe because of these pedophile wonderland Fluff pieces you're making about like, this is where the little girls come to little girls and be joyful little girls. Look how little they are. Let's voyeuristically fetishize these little girls.
Yeah. I think that also, so the other thing that happens now is that we go back, because they're just recycling this shit over and over. So it's Bela back in his freaking boat with like the sun setting behind him that we've already seen 25 times, being again not knowing how to row. So like he rows on one side and the whole boat turns. Anybody who's ever been in a boat knows that when you row by yourself, you sit in the very back and you row from the back. So this doesn't happen, like, or you turn around and you have 2 rowers at the same time on either side of you with both arms. Like,
or you don't just use one of the oars, so you end up going in a circle.
Right, like,
it's
duh.
Just like Splish, splash, splish, splash.
Like, he built his own... This is the other thing. Again, like, he built the lake with his own 2 hands. Who believes this shit? Like, what?
He would still be doing it if he built the lake, like, and shoveling it out himself.
Yes. I'm just like, come on, NBC. Like, give us a little bit of credit, please.
Oh, my God. And this is also when we get Kim Zmeskal placed on the lonely swing of failure because she got bronze in Barcelona. I know that this was just like one shot where they were like, we're at the ranch, Kim, go sit on this swing and swing there for a second. But they use it so often and so much because it like symbolized her regret over her career or whatever, that it seemed like she was on that swing for, 3 years. Like, she was just there at the Karolyi Ranch. She couldn't leave this swing and just had to stare over the Bela own 2 hands lake and be like, I regret everything. Ugh. So, like, of course, the Olympics were a nightmare for her, but now Dominique Moceanu is going to, like, restore Bela's faith in humanity because she can be a champion after he, like, was disappointed by Kim.
Right, and, like, he literally calls it a nightmare. Like, he actually says that. And then I wonder, maybe, who knows if, like, NBC fed him the line. Do you think it became a nightmare? Or could you say, you never know what goes on behind the scenes. But I think it totally came from him. And I'm like, what coach puts that narrative out there for a gymnast? That's like punishing someone. No, you say, like, no, this is why kids do sports, because you learn from your mistakes, and this is all a learning experience. And look at what she learned. She came back like a motherfucking champ and killed it in every competition and won that shit the next day. Had the highest team, score of our whole team in optionals. Booyah! That's what the kind of person that I coach, a champion. Not, well, it turned into a nightmare.
Yeah,
Thanks.
but like,
she didn't feel bad enough.
Yeah, we've heard from Kim so often talking about how, like, for a long time, she did view 1992 as, like, a regret or a disappointment or a failure, and now she's learned to, like, now she's learned to, like, appreciate it for what it was and be thankful for the experience and all that. And I'm like, well, yeah, she did. Every single Fluff piece and coach is being like, oh, yeah, Kim was a failure after the disappointment of Kim. Like, oh, no wonder she thought that, because that's what she was told 785 times in a row every single day and in every single broadcast. So, of course, now Bela has come out of retirement again to coach Dominique Moceanu, which we're told is like, he's doing it for the children. And I'm like, he's doing it for himself. Don't front here. And we get him talking about Dominique Moceanu. And it's one of those things where, like, his face says that I'm really happy about this, but the examples that of the stories he's telling, he's not happy about. Like, he says things like, oh, her little mouth is nonstop saying something. And I'm like, he's saying that through gritted teeth. Like, that's the kind of thing you get in trouble for at Karolyi's, like, for talking or having a personality. And then because Bela, she just says, he's a very, very human being. He's a very, very human being. That doesn't mean anything. Apparently, Dominique Moceanu, he's a very, very human being. Okay. And then, also it's 1994, so we get some really good fashions. Like, Kim is wearing a really awesome baseball cap that I think she would definitely be proud of now. And I think we need to screen cap and just be like, remember this time you wore this baseball cap, Kim. But she's also, like, in that shot, it just made me laugh. She's also ripped. Like, bonkers ripped in that shot. I was like, damn, Kim! She's like, bodybuilder. That was the other thing I noticed about the shot of her at the Karolyi's. I was like, nice hat, awesome arms.
Yes!
And then we get the whole backstory of, like, that story about Dominique Moceanu signing the autograph where she was, like, 1996 Olympic all-around champion for sure that NBC was obsessed with because they were like, oh my God, she's a soothsayer. She knew even then. And then Bela, okay, one other thing that Bela talks about is that, his nonsense babbling. He is talking about how hungry she is and how she's the one who wants to tear down the mountain. And I'm like, wait. I thought she was climbing the sugar mountain in the other Fluff piece that you said about her. So which is it? Is she climbing the mountain or has she already torn it down? Because if you're telling her in 1996 to climb that sugar mountain, but she already tore it down in 1995, like, that's just mean. Get your imagery straight, Bela. This is not working for me. It's really rough. All the stuff about Moceanu is really rough. But also some of it is hilarious. and so inappropriate. So in 1997, when Moceanu came back to compete at Nationals, NBC did a fluff piece about her leaving Bela, because the whole storyline was like, how could she go on now without Bela? She won't be able to survive, of course. And we get a minute-long fluff piece just of shots of Dominique Moceanu with like Bela superimposed over it to the tune of Sarah McLachlan's I Will Remember You. Like, it's so on the nose and raw, and just like, even then you would have been like, this is not factually accurate. But just, it's so ridiculous. And it makes me like, it's so it's the kind of fluff that like, it's so bad and so over the top that I just want to watch it all the time because it's so insane.
It was the kind of thing that really, it was NBC saying, oh, we had someone with guaranteed crazy quotes and someone we could show instead of this boring gymnastics who'd be on the sideline doing like, you know, boxing antics. That was really for them. It was the whole producing, like, they were just like, oh, put where you see Moceanu, really, that's the NBC production truck.
Yes. There's also when Moceanu came back to go for the 2000 Olympic team, and then she was injured and she had to withdraw from Olympic trials. It was also that kind of NBC thing where they were like, oh, we made a whole fluff piece about Moceanu's comeback, and now she's withdrawn, so we're just going to kind of show it anyway and add in some little parts about like, but it didn't work out. That one about her withdrawing from 2000 is mostly notable for the ridiculous fake photo shoot that they organized where they make Moceanu stand in a forest in a leotard in front of a beige drape and just like claw upwards toward a tree. Like, I don't know what the symbolism here or the imagery is. Like, she's clawing for the love that never came or something. I don't know what we're trying to see. But you know that thing where you put on your leotard and you go to a forest and you're like, let me reach toward the top of this tree and like clop at it like a horse. Like, that's a thing that people do. This looks natural. Show that.
I'm so glad we have gotten away from this, like, in the forest, and now it's all more glamourish. It's all more like put them in fancy outfits and put them on a beam, that kind of thing. Although this does remind me of the worst photo shoot ever, which was from the 1996 team. And it's that famous photographer who also photographed her writer wife after she died. It's in her book, Annie Leibovitz. She did a photo shoot of the 96 team where, like, she's on the ground. They're on a beach, but there's, like, mats underneath them. And then she's, like, from the point of view of the mats, like, beneath them. And they all are above her doing, like, split leaps. It's just, like, a crotch shot. It's, like, the whole team crotch shot. Like, they're all in the air just and I'm just like, what? Who thought this was a good idea? Like, who was like, oh, yeah, you'll be underneath them all, and they're all in white leotards? That sounds like a great idea. Like, oh, that kind of thing drives me nuts. I'm just like, who is anyone thinking beyond the moment right here? Ay.
Is anyone thinking beyond, like, obviously the drugs that you've taken before doing this photo shoot? Because that's the only explanation for, like, clawing at the tree of hope or whatever she was supposed to be doing there. Oh,
can we go back?
Hasn't she been through enough?
Can we go back to Russia where everything makes sense?
Oh, okay. So let's go back to Russia. Not really Russia. Belarus.
It was like Russia. They try to make it sound like it's because of Russian time 88 that this happened, but it really wasn't, because nobody to this day knows why it happened.
Yeah, so this is a fluff piece aired in 1992 about Svetlana Boginskaya and her coach, Lyubov Miromanova, who committed suicide. So it's a fluff piece about suicide. So as I'm sure you know, NBC handled it with grace and class and professionalism. Obviously, that's wrong. It's horrifying. It's just the worst. Like, NBC is doing a fluff piece about suicide. Like, that's all you have to say to know that this is a bad idea. Like, how did you think this was going to go? But we have it's just mostly like 85 minutes of Bogey staring sadly as NBC essentially implies that not winning the all-around gold in Seoul caused her coach to commit suicide. They just kind of like throw that out there like that's a normal thing to say, and you're just like, Clang. Come on, NBC. And it takes like most of the fluff for them to even give her coach a name. She's just like the suicide coach. And the end, they're like, oh, Lyubov Miromonova is her name, but she's just like the suicide coach because she's not a person. She's just a storyline in this fluff piece that we're making. It's mostly horrible, but I do want to point out a part where I cracked up like a lot and really inappropriately, but not inappropriately at the thing I found was funny because it was funny. So they do the whole like normal fluff narrative where like she only gets to go back and visit her family once every 78 years, except Bogi is like, what, 20 at this point?
Yeah.
She's like a grown-up. So they show her, like they make her go back and visit her family, and there's just one shot of it, and she's sitting there like checking her watch and looking grumpy, like, when can I leave? When can I go back to where I live and not have to be here anymore? And I just really enjoyed that. She was like, when they were trying to make it all like the few precious moments she gets to spend with her parents once every 3 months. And she's like, yeah, this is fine.
I gotta get back to my boyfriends and the club and being around my friends. I don't want to be at home. But I have to say, though, besides the giant, horrible, like 1970s motorcycle gang mustache that her dad had, I was like, God, her dad's like, kind of handsome. Like, I've never seen him before. Like, he's... or whoever the guy with the giant mustache was. Like, I don't know who it was. But I was like, if you took that off, that might be a good looker under there. Maybe she gets her looks. Also, of course, we go back to the Rusty Gate at Round Lake, which may be anywhere. Who knows? It's probably in Romania, and it's in front of the castle, with some, Russian language on it. But anyway, we see more of gorgeous Round Lake. We see a ballet bar with a huge mirror, and not just mirror stuck to the wall, but a mirror with a wood frame. There's a fancy Persian rug looking carpet underneath their feet. And there's, again, wood floors. There's an actual piano with a piano player. One of those big black ones, not like the half ones that are stuck against the wall.
Wait. I know you were saying one of those big black ones about the piano, but you said with a piano player, one of those big black ones.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it that way. No, the piano, the actual piano was one of the grand, not the half stuck against the wall thing. And people that play instruments are going to call and be like, it's called a grand. It's this, is that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was beautiful and shiny. And just, I love seeing the inside of there. It's so fascinating to me. So, yeah.
Yes. And as we go to Round Lake, of course, there's more like, we're talking about a 19, 20-year-old or whatever, and it's all like the little girls of Round Lake, and let's see how often she cries, and does she cry a lot? Oh, she cries a lot. She must be really unhappy about the suicide, or also probably that's what we're assuming this is about, because you can definitely, if you just have a random shot at someone crying, you should definitely just guess at what they're crying about. That's usually a good strategy.
This is the other thing about all the crying. Like, when you're pushing yourself to your absolute physical limit... sometimes you get overwhelmed and you cry. Like, even in, like I've seen in wrestling practice, like 20 to 25-year-old men in there would cry occasionally. They got absolutely pushed their limit. Like, that is not just like, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's just like, you can get out your emotion and frustrations. Like, who cares? You cry. Like, yeah, if you're kind of person that, like we talked about with Dawes, like cry so much, can't get control. Like, you gotta put a cap on it. But sometimes you just have to go off and cry. Like, geez, maybe you got her on a bad day. Ugh.
Yeah, and also we learned that the 92 Olympics are her final competition. Nope. But she's just like, nope, bye. But they also kind of do the same story again in 1995 as a fluff piece, because of course they do. But there's another part of it that I love where she talks about like her whole life being coached by women, and then when she goes to work with Bela for 30 seconds, and then she's like, pfft, and then she works with Alexandrov, and she's just like, ugh, the working with men is the worst. They're awful, and I hate them, and you can't talk to them, and this is awful. I want to go back, and I'm just like, I love you, Bogi.
And when she's like, you just can't talk about private things or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. Like, you can't just be like, it's period week. Just, I'm gonna cry 17 times. Just don't make me do bars. Like, I just can't say that to Bela. He doesn't understand.
He doesn't understand. I love it. And especially in contrast to like who is the man who's going to make her dreams come true. I enjoyed seeing this from Bogi, being like, ugh, none of them. Stop.
Yes.
There was also one that we got sent in, and I'm really glad we got sent in because I'd kind of forgotten about it, which was a fluff piece that aired in 1996, but about like controversial Olympic team decisions and heartbreaks. So they talk about Diane Durham being shut out in 84, and they talk a lot about Kim Kelly and the 92 situation, which I specifically love because they show us the footage of that closed door secondary competition that they had at Brown's in Florida in 1992. But they're like this closed competition, and then we get like the spy footage from behind like an obscure window on the second floor of Kim Kelly doing a double layout on bars, and I'm in heaven. And then we get the like ridiculously overproduced but amazing blurry shot of a smoke-filled room with people around a conference table that's supposed to symbolize like the decision being made and how like corrupt it was or whatever, like this is Watergate or something, or it's like the smoke-filled room of like a political convention in the 50s or whatever. It's just like everything they can do to make this decision look as shady as possible they have done, and I'm on board. It's amazing.
Yes.
And then we get the story of Kim Kelly telling who, the thing with Kim Kelly is like the team they decided on, they decided it because it was the best team. And now if this happened because of the situation, the selection system being how it is and how we understand it, like no one would have any problem with it. It's like Michaela Skinner finishing whatever fourth at trials and not making the team because she didn't fit on the team. It's normal, but Kim Kelly also had like reason to have grievances about this process, and being named to the team in the secondary competition, it was not handled well. But also I'm fine with her like kind of going to the press and making a whole thing and getting heard. I have no problem with that at all. It doesn't always make her look great because as she tells the story, the famous story of the Strausses coming back to the room and her saying, "Who'd they drop?" "You, Kim." "No, really, who'd they drop?" And then it's her, and they have to keep telling her. There's another fluff piece where Donna Strauss says that they had to tell her 4 times before she understood that she wasn't on the Olympic team. And at some point it's like, oh, come on, Kim. Like, I know that's inappropriate of me, but that's all I can think whenever they tell these stories. Like, okay, like pick up what I dropped here, Kim. You're not on the Olympic team. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. In her defense, she was like, I hit every routine. Why wouldn't I have been selected? It wouldn't even occur to her. But yeah, the whole thing was so messed up. It was so like terribly done. I did like that in this one, they actually show, there's this thing called college gymnastics that people do where they're happy. And she could score a 10 and she did great. And how she talks about like, yeah, I still did, like, that wasn't the end all for me. Like, I love gymnastics. I coach. I still do it in college. It's great. That did not like ruin me or crush my spirit, despite all of the things NBC would have you think to the contrary. It was really good.
Yeah, I know. She was like, and that's also part of it, but like she went to the press and talked about it, but they like way dramatized, like she has been broken by this decision and her life will never be the same because the only important thing is the Olympics, obviously. And
she was like, no, not so much. Speaking of adults.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to the modern day, closer to the modern day a little bit, because we have to talk about Mohini, who was like a fluff piece dream for NBC. They were so excited by these stories and her story. So we start at like the pizza parlor where she is delivering pizzas, and it's just like a close-up of a vat of tomato sauce. Like, this is Mohini Bhardwaj. You're like, it isn't. That's a vat of tomato sauce. But we learn the story about her delivering pizza and spending a week only eating power bars, and she's able to talk about it as an adult and not have to have a voiceover telling her story for her. I also kind of enjoy, like, she very much, you can tell like she's been around and she understands like what these fluff pieces are and what they're going to do with her words, because she's very careful of describing like, yeah, this is my situation right now, and there are a lot of struggles that other people going for this team don't have, but also like, I'm okay, I made this choice. Like, she's very clear about like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to get through it. Please don't try to turn me into some sob story that I'm not. Like, this is me, and this is how I want to present myself, which I really enjoy.
Yep, especially when she's like, yeah, when I'm done with this, yeah, I'll go get a real job. But for now, this is what I have to do to make my dream come true. Like, and it's my choice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I also thought it was interesting how she said, like, they must have asked her something like, don't you think you should be getting funding, or don't you think you should, like, some kind of implication like that? Because she says, well, I don't necessarily think this is how, you know, like Olympic hopefuls should have to live. But, and I wondered if there was some controversy about her not getting the same kind of money. Like, I don't remember what the rules were around like 2000, because she had already been on a world team. It wasn't like she came out of nowhere. Right?
They totally skip that over. So, like, we get, like, 1996 at trials, and she failed, and then for women, that's when their careers are usually over, which I know, like, most people, but she, like, continued to UCLA. It wasn't like, Mohini's so old, but they skip over the fact that she made the world team in 2001 because it doesn't fit the narrative of, like, she's had success as an elite before, because they wanted her to just be like, hard luck, everything is terrible, elbow injury in 2002, and now underdog. And that making the world's team in 2001 and being like one of the top contenders didn't fit, so they just ignored it.
Like you do. Yeah. Also, they don't mention in here how all the other gymnasts who have made teams in their 20s, like, this was one Olympic team that I had two like 24, 26-year-olds on the same team.
Right,
But, you know, there were plenty before that, too, like 20-year-olds in 1996. Like, and they totally skip over that. Just like, she's a complete anomaly. It's never happened before.
It really undermines their argument that we had Anya Hatch the very same year. Like, you can't really be like, she's defying the odds, so can you believe she's in her 20s, when Anya Hatch was over there like, hey, like, I'm here too.
Exactly.
This is normal. The one thing I will give them credit for is I was legit surprised that at no point during this Mo hard luck story did they mention Pamela Anderson, because that whole part of the story became they were so enamored of that it overshadowed her, and like they couldn't talk about Mohini. They just had to show shots of Pamela Anderson, and it was like, okay, but there's also a gymnast here. So I was like getting ready to like applaud NBC for like, oh, I'm so surprised you made it about Mohini instead of making it about Pam Anderson. And then it finishes, and oh, here's Al piping up like within a millisecond with like, and also Pamela Anderson. This is the story I have to tell. And then he tells the story about like, Mohini came to her door selling raffle bars. And I'm like, what are raffle bars? What's a raffle bar? Like
candy bars that you sell to like raise money for something.
Raffle bar is not a term.
Bar? No, I've never heard that.
Raffle bar. So if you thought you were upset before, Jessica, we need to talk about this is just the weirdest one. Like, this is just the most bizarre. Like, why did you even feel the need to make this fluff? Like, what is it even about? So, in 1994, the classic year, because most of these have been from 1994, there is a little fluff piece. It's mostly just about little girls and how gymnasts are little girls. But it's sort of from the perspective of, like, isn't it a shame they aren't littler, or like we don't get more little girls, or like they can't just be little innocents. And they talk about Christy Henrik, who is the gymnast who died of an eating disorder several years after she finished competing, which once again, NBC taking on an issue should just leave alone, because you're going to make a mess of it. But it's handled so poorly, obviously. The way they talk about like the winners in competitions are the ones who please the judges, which is why Christy Henrik had an eating disorder. And then they describe her as a troubled young woman, which I don't really like that expression or that terminology. Makes it seem like she it's like her fault, or she has some kind of moral failing or something. It's awful. And then then the kicker here is the quote, "Her death has been a wake-up call for the sport." Oh, really? Has it? Good thing everything got fixed in 1994. Great. Everyone really cared and did a lot to fix things. Oh, brother.
Definitely no issues at all. Reference our interviews with Alicia Sacramone, and please listen to the one with Maroney.
Yeah.
Well,
No
Maloney
issues
too.
whatsoever.
Yeah, but those two specifically, Michaela and Sacramone, talk about some issues going on related to this and how people are treated. It did not all fix everything, and then we get those
it's such
two.
a weird So we get the voiceover now gymnastics has learned that it's going to start creating healthy gymnasts with self-esteem. That'll happen. And then over that we get a shot of Nuno and Moceanu. Okay, this is good evidence to support your point.
Won't
everyone's
end in
gonna
disaster.
have so much self-esteem now. Because they're just little girls, and don't you wish we could just have the innocent little girls back? That's the idea here. And it's ew.
It was so weird. Remember, they're just little girls. And it's no, remember, these are people that need to be treated with dignity and need to be protected from themselves sometimes, because the people that excel at this tend to be super A-type personalities who will do anything to win. And so you need to be extra cautious about stuff like this. Because they're humans, first and foremost, not machines for winning medals. I just feel like this was one of those things that reminded me of that terrible interview with NBC and putting Nastia on the spot with that live interview and asking her point blank if she'd ever been victimized by Nasser on live television. And it made me so angry. And I was like, this is another case of this. Serious issues like this should never be addressed in a fluff piece. It should be an interview with an expert, period. End of story. It does not belong here. And now we have to talk about one of the best fluff pieces of all time. One of the most racist ever, but also best.
Yeah, it's a very weird fluff about Alvira Tesa in 1998, because on the one hand, there are some super racist things happening, and on the other hand, it's also really positive and fun, and I kind of want to be a part of it. So we meet Alvira Tesa and her coaches in France who are from China. So obviously we have to use that exact same Mohuilan 1996 music that they use, because there's only one music cue that you can use for anyone Chinese. You have to make the ancient sounding Chinese music cue, because you have no other identity other than that. So that's great. But then also there are bagpipes for some reason. I didn't understand that part. Whatever. Just we had bagpipes for a while. So basically the whole premise of this fluff piece is can you believe all of these countries coming together? Can you believe someone from China would move to France and coach gymnastics? And you're yes. That, yes, I can believe that.
Yeah, so it's
happens.
Every country that has gymnastics, there's coaches from all over the world coaching kids.
Yes, yeah. I can believe that.
Normal.
And they're can you, Alvira Tesa's coaches moved from China to France, and Alvira Tesa is from an island, which they don't name. They're just she's from there for her. Coaches are from China, and she's from an island. She's just on some deserted island. Boop, I'm born.
And
It's some mythical mermaid island, which obviously true, but also ridiculous.
I was just oh my god, okay, so they're all French? What is the problem here?
Yeah.
What
it's they're so fascinated by multiple cultures coming together, and think about the multiple languages that are spoken in this house. I'm okay. Yeah.
They were they're expecting to walk in and it would be a bunch of white people eating cheese with a beret. What world are you living in? This is 1998 France. It's very diverse.
Can you believe that? Look, they're eating wontons. Because of Chinese coaches. Can you believe? But then at the same time, first of all, this is 1998, so most of it is about Titanic for some reason, because that was all anyone was talking about. There's just they're asking her questions about her Leonardo DiCaprio poster and going to see Titanic. I'm what does this have to do with anything? But so that's most of it. But also the fun they're having. They're there's a group of the French gymnasts, and they're eating good food, and they're doing karaoke, and they look like they're having a great time, and I'm I kind of want to move in. I want to move in and join this French team right now. And it was kind of one of the rare situations where a gymnast who is not from the US is allowed in a fluff piece to be having a good time, because usually the story is you're a diva, or you're from a war-torn country and we need to look at your eyes, or you were ripped from your mother's bosom at the age of 1 month to go serve your government, or those are the options if you're a gymnast not from the US. So it was oh, Alvira Tesa gets to have a good time and do karaoke. I'm so surprised.
That was the thing that I loved about this. Also, by the way, appearing in this cameo by Woga coach and 1996 French Olympian and teammate of Alvira Tesa, Cecile, her name then was Ken Cantu, but now Landy, one of the Landy coaches, coach of gold medalist Madison Koshin, of course. So, like, I love seeing her and Tesa hanging out and giggling. And, like, also, when their coach sings, they're laughing hysterically like you would do when you see your coach do something like that.
If you saw your coach doing karaoke, you'd be like, oh my God,
I'm so embarrassed.
I'm so glad this is on film for all of eternity.
Yeah, it was like one of the most honest looks at a household, a normal household.
It was like a fun fluff piece, even though there were like a lot of racist parts.
Yes, it was I was so conflicted about this. It was so great and terrible. Thank you so much to Fluff Feels for supporting this show and commissioning this. We had a great time doing it. We laughed so much. And now we have to come up with the GymCastic Bechdel test. Just want to commission one fluff piece? You could do that. You can do like a mini commission. That's one of the tiers now for being a member. And we can just talk about that one fluff piece in one episode instead of doing these big episodes.
Remember to get your live show tickets. They're on sale now for December 9th. In-person or virtual tickets where you can ask questions to our guests live with a virtual ticket. Tell all your friends. And please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to automatically download so you always have it ready, especially it's travel season. So you never have to worry about Wi-Fi. You always have us with you at all times. I hope you guys enjoyed a walk down memory lane with one of our favorite episodes of all time. If you like this, check out the show notes because there's more highlights like this. And remember too, until next week, take a vange, split on rights. Thanks for listening.